You're still this sick? Medical bills in this country aren't cheap at all. My husband's cold voice echoed through the hospital cafe. People around us chuckled. There's a saying that a sick woman only cares about money. I'm sorry, but I'm tired. The young woman sitting next to me smiled shyly and held my husband's hand. Let's get a divorce. I'm going to start a new life with Megan. At that moment, my heart felt like it was being squeezed. My husband, with whom I had lived for 15 years, was abandoning his sick wife for a younger woman. I'll give Megan the house and the car. You won't need much of that, right? I couldn't say anything. The gazes of the people around us felt like they were burning me, and tears welled up in my eyes, but they couldn't possibly imagine it. Everything they enjoyed was created by my own hands. And just 1 week later, my husband called me, sobbing uncontrollably. Hello, my name is Hannah Miller, and I am 38 years old. I am telling you this story in the hope that what I went through might help someone in a similar situation. At that time, I felt very lost. If anyone is going through a difficult period, I hope my story can offer even a little bit of comfort. It was last autumn. It was a very cold day in New York. I was walking down the hallway of a large general hospital in Manhattan. I had just come out of a treatment session for my chronic dermatitis. In truth, I hadn't been well for months. Waking up in the morning was a struggle. Even climbing a flight of stairs left me gasping for air and feeling heavy. The hospital hallway, as always, had that faint smell of antiseptic. People moved quietly, bathed in the white light of the fluorescent lamps. I walked slowly, thinking about the results of today's treatment. The doctor had told me to reduce stress and get plenty of rest, but I wondered if I could relax when I got home. That was when I heard a familiar voice from up ahead. Megan, I told you, the food here is delicious. It was my husband's voice. His name is Tom Miller. We had been married for over 15 years, but why is my husband here? I asked myself. And when I looked up, he was indeed there. But he wasn't alone. A young woman was standing next to him. At first, I didn't recognize who it was. I thought it was just a colleague from his office. But then I looked closer and saw the woman linking arms with my husband, and it looked very natural, as if they were lovers. Right then, my steps halted. My heart pounded. I knew for certain something was wrong. Oh, Hannah. My husband looked at me and spoke without showing even a hint of embarrassment. In fact, he seemed confident, as if nothing was wrong. Megan, this is my wife, Hannah Miller. That was when I realized. That woman was Megan. She was the person my husband had mentioned a lot recently. I had only heard she was a junior associate at his workplace, but clearly, their relationship was much more. Megan looked me up and down and gave a small smirk. I could feel the condescension in her expression. I was wearing a comfortable gray sweater and jeans because I was at the hospital and I was wearing almost no makeup. My face was pale, and I probably looked like a sick person. Megan, on the other hand, was wearing full makeup and a stylish red coat. She certainly looked healthy and youthful. Oh, hi, I'm Megan. Megan greeted me, and her voice was sickeningly sweet. She was a beautiful woman, about 25 years old. Her long hair was slightly wavy, and she looked genuinely young. My husband suddenly grabbed my shoulder and said, Hannah, we need to talk. Then, he led me to a cafe in the hospital lobby. Megan naturally followed. A stranger sitting at our round table, it felt awkward. Or perhaps I was the only one who felt awkward. My husband and Megan seemed quite comfortable. The cafe was warm, with the scent of coffee wafting through the air. Perhaps because it was past lunch hour, there weren't many people around. My husband ordered an Americano, and Megan ordered a latte. I just ordered water because I had no appetite. Hannah, I'm going to be honest, my husband said after taking a sip of coffee. His expression was very serious. I had seen that look for 15 years. It was the face he usually made when making an important decision. You're still this sick? Medical bills aren't cheap. My heart sank at that moment. I had a hunch something terrible was coming. There is a stereotype that chronically ill women drain finances. I'm sorry, but I'm tired. My husband's voice was cold. It wasn't the voice of a partner of 15 years. It was as if he were talking to a stranger. So what do you want us to do? I asked softly. Actually, I already knew the answer. What else could be said in this situation? Let's get a divorce, my husband said decisively. He looked at Megan as if for confirmation. I'm starting over with Megan. I'm thinking of giving her the house and the car. You won't need much of that, right? Megan smiled shyly and squeezed my husband's hand. It seemed they had known each other for a long time. I looked at him in silence. Was I angry or sad? Thinking back, I think it was actually relief. I felt relieved that it was finally over. You've had a hard time. I'm sorry, my husband added, but I didn't really feel any sincerity. It sounded like a rehearsed line. Okay, I nodded. My husband looked a bit surprised. I guess he expected me to cry, cling to him, or at least get angry. Go ahead. As you wish, I said, as I slowly stood up. I had nothing left to say. I sensed a bit of confusion in Megan's eyes. Maybe I was too calm, and it unsettled her. As I left the hospital, I told myself, I have endured too much over the past 15 years. My husband's indifference, my mother-in-law's mistreatment, the financial pressure. But now, I can finally see the end. Up until that moment, my husband had absolutely no idea who I really was. He didn't know what I did, what capabilities I had, or how much I had hidden. Perhaps he wouldn't know for a little while longer. I sat in my car in the underground parking garage and sat in silence for a long time. My hands no longer trembled on the steering wheel. Instead, my heart was calm. I felt that this was truly the beginning. Then I took out my phone and made a call. Kevin, it's me. I'm coming to the office. I have work to do. That evening, I went to the office in Midtown Manhattan. Normally, I would go straight home to the suburbs, but tonight was different. I had business to handle. The Midtown office was the headquarters of the company I had been running for the past 10 years. It was a manufacturing firm. It started as a small subcontractor, but now it had grown significantly. We had over 100 employees and an annual revenue of about $10 million, but my husband knew nothing about any of this. No, he simply hadn't wanted to know. I parked in the building's underground garage and took the elevator up. Our office was on the top floor, the 15th floor. Although it was late, the office lights were on. It was always like this. Manager Kevin Jacobs often stayed late to work. When I opened the door and walked in, Kevin was sitting at his computer. He was about 45, 7 years older than me. He was the CFO and had been working for us for about 5 years. He was a truly trustworthy person. The reason I could run the company alone was because of people like Kevin. Boss, you're late, Kevin said, looking up. But when he saw my face, he seemed to sense something was wrong. What happened? Kevin, sit down. I have something important to tell you. I sat on the sofa in the corner of the office. Kevin sat opposite me. The hum of the coffee machine and the faint noise of New York City traffic below could be heard. I decided to divorce my husband today, I said quietly. Kevin looked surprised. Of course, he knew parts of my family's situation, but he probably didn't expect this to happen so suddenly. Suddenly? Is it because of an affair? He came to the hospital today with that woman and demanded a divorce. Kevin looked at me in silence for a long time. Then he took a deep breath. You must have been through a very hard time, ma'am. It's okay. I feel relieved. I feel relieved that it's finally over. I said it sincerely. It was the truth. But Kevin, there are some things we need to settle, I continued. Kevin nodded. The things Tom has been using. We need to reclaim all of them. Kevin nodded slowly. Actually, we've already prepared for this scenario. Kevin knew my married life hadn't been easy. Everything, from the house in Westchester to the car accounts, was under the company's name or my personal name hidden within trusts. That's right. I did exactly as you instructed, Kevin replied calmly. Actually, the reason I did that was because of the anxiety I felt from the beginning of the marriage. I felt my husband's attitude toward me growing colder. So, just in case, I transferred all assets into the corporate trust. The house in Westchester is registered under the company, and Tom's car is also a company vehicle. I also manage the living expense accounts. I checked everything. Kevin opened his laptop and started organizing the data. What about the factory? The factory land in New Jersey is also under the president's personal name. The building and machinery are company assets, Kevin explained while looking at the screen. The investments were listed clearly. Just looking at them, it was obvious they were substantial. In reality, Tom only knew about what he thought he owned, the house and the car. He had no idea about the scale or revenue of the company, did he? Yes, I kept it a secret on purpose. Even if I told him, he wouldn't have cared. He was really like that. My husband only knew I had a small side business. He didn't care how much I made a month or how many employees I had. He even dismissed it, saying, "How much money can a woman doing a side hustle make?" "So, what do you plan to do now?" Kevin asked cautiously. I said bluntly, "I'll wait a week. I'll let Tom dream about his new beginning for about a week. Then, I'll take everything back." Kevin looked closely at my face. He seemed surprised by my composure. If I rushed, it might look emotional. I didn't want to do it that way. I wanted to handle things quietly, calmly, and legally. Understood. Then, in 1 week, we can freeze all accounts, recall the company vehicle, and begin the process of changing the title on the corporate housing, Kevin said clearly. As expected, having worked together for so long, we could communicate without saying much. "Yes, please do that. And I've appointed a lawyer. I've already contacted her. Attorney Sarah Jenkins said she would come here tomorrow afternoon." "Kevin, you prepared this in advance. You're really reliable." I looked out the office window, gazing at the Hudson River. The night view was beautiful. The bridges were lit up, the river flowing calmly. All of this was the result of 10 years of blood, sweat, and tears. While my husband ignored me and paid no attention, I quietly did my work. "Ma'am, are you really okay? Doesn't it hurt?" Kevin asked with a worried voice. "It hurts. We've been together for 15 years. How could it not hurt? But I can't endure it anymore." I told him honestly. I think I hid too much. My business, my abilities, my appearance. I just played the role of the quiet wife. But I don't want to live like that anymore. Kevin nodded silently. "I will help you in any way you wish. I'll ensure there are no legal issues." "Thank you, Kevin." The night deepened. The office clock struck 11 p.m. I grabbed my bag and stood up. "Then, Kevin, just 1 more week. Tom won't know anything until then," I thought to myself on the way home. Now, a completely new life was truly beginning. It was time to reveal my true self, the one I had hidden for so long. My husband still knew nothing. He had no idea who I was or what power I held, but he would find out soon enough. 1 week passed. To be precise, a week and a day. I lived my daily life as usual. I went to work, got treatment at the hospital, and stayed quiet at home. I even watched my husband pack his bags. Tom was excited. He talked to Megan on the phone every day, toured new houses, and looked at furniture. He even spoke to me very casually about it. In front of my wife, Hannah, whom I've lived with for 15 years, and Megan, we are about to sign a contract for a condo in Tribeca. Tom said this at dinner, almost bragging. A $300,000 down payment, with a mortgage. "Are you okay?" I just nodded. I couldn't say a word, nor did I need to. But then, that Monday morning, the real story unfolded. Tom received a call from the bank. It was around 8 a.m. before I left for work. He was about to go to the bank with Megan to prepare the loan documents for the house. "Yes? What did you say?" Tom held the phone, his voice getting louder. "My account is frozen?" "Why?" I overheard Tom's call while brewing coffee in the kitchen, just as I expected. "No. When did I ask to freeze the account?" Tom started yelling. Megan watched with a worried expression. "I'm going to the bank right now. There must be a mistake." Tom hung up and quickly got dressed. Megan followed him out. I watched quietly. I thought, this is it. Around 10 a.m., Tom called again. I was working in my office. "Hannah, this is strange. My account is really frozen." His voice sounded panicked. "The bank says the account holder filed the request, but I never did." "Okay. So who did?" I asked calmly. "I don't know. Anyway, my credit card isn't working, and my debit card is locked too." Megan is furious. I knew this would happen. Someone like Megan is very sensitive about money. Tom called home during lunch hour. I happened to be there briefly and picked up. Hannah, what did you do? I could hear the suspicion in his voice. What did I do? Isn't it your fault that you froze the accounts and locked the cards? Tom asked aggressively. Do I have the authority to do that? I asked back. Right. I didn't do it personally. Kevin handled it through legal procedures. So what? Why is this happening? I don't know. You should ask the bank directly, I answered calmly. Around 3 p.m., Tom came home with Megan. Both of their faces were sullen. What the hell is going on? Megan asked me directly. Her voice was sharp. What are you talking about? I followed him because he said he had money. But now I see there's no money in the account and the cards don't work. Megan's true colors began to show. After all, she chose my husband for money. That's not something you should ask me, I said quietly. Ask Tom yourself. Tom tried to sweet-talk Megan. Megan, it's probably just a temporary issue. I'll look into it. What temporary issue? You can't even pay the down payment for the condo, and you don't have moving expenses. What is the situation? Megan raised her voice. Didn't you say you had plenty of money at first? You have the house and the car, right? You have the house and car, right? Tom made excuses. But why don't you have any money? This house really belongs to you, right? Megan asked a sharp question. Young girls are different. I wouldn't ask that, I thought. Of course it's mine. I've lived here for 15 years, Tom replied, but his voice sounded uncertain. Then why don't we take out a home equity loan? That would cover the down payment, Megan suggested. It's a bit complicated, Tom hesitated. In reality, Tom didn't know exactly whose name the house was under. He just assumed it was his. What do you mean complicated? The house isn't in your name? Megan kept pressing. No, that's not it. Tom was flustered. Even I felt a little sorry for him. Because I had handled everything for 15 years, he really didn't know the details of his own finances. During dinner, I could hear Megan arguing with Tom all the way from the living room. You're so weird, honey. You have no money, and you're not even sure about your own assets. What have you been living on? Megan, calm down. I'll check. You keep saying you'll check, but how long will that take? I told you I quit my job to move into the new house. That was the first time I heard Megan say she quit her job. I knew she had really pinned her hopes on Tom. And honey, there's one more weird thing. What? The bank teller earlier said all these accounts are in the name of Hannah Miller. Is that your wife? At that moment, the living room went silent. Tom was quiet for a while before walking toward the den. Hannah, let me see. Tom opened the door and walked in. His face was pale. Is it true the accounts are in your name? Yes, that's right, I answered honestly. Why didn't you tell me until now? You never asked. It was true. Tom had zero interest in the business. So, this house is also in your name? It's in the company's name. It's corporate housing that I manage. Tom's face grew even darker. Even the car? It's a company car. Tom stared at me for a long time in silence. Then suddenly he shouted, Then what do I have? Megan must have heard him from the living room. A moment later, Megan walked into the room. What are you saying, Tom? Megan, go out for a second. No, I won't. I need to hear this too. This involves me, Megan said firmly. Tom asked me again. Hannah, is there really nothing in my name? No, I said firmly. You provided the living expenses, right? Yes, the car and house were perks. Tom was speechless. Megan slowly backed away. Then, her eyes changed completely as she looked at Tom. Tom, does that mean you're unemployed and broke right now? Megan's voice was ice cold. Megan, it's not like that. It's not. You lied to me. Megan suddenly exploded in anger. You told me to quit my job because you had money. That night, Megan and Tom argued for a long time. I heard it from my room. I could hear Megan crying and screaming, and Tom making excuses. Finally, Megan left first. Around 10 p.m., she slammed the door and stormed out. Tom walked into my room. Hannah, was this all your plan? What are you talking about? Tom said with a desperate face. You planned to make me divorce and break up with Megan. There was no such plan. I just did what you wanted, I replied calmly. I didn't lie. I just protected what was mine. Tom must have slept very little that night. I could hear him pacing in the living room until dawn. The next morning, I called Kevin very early. Kevin, go ahead with it today. Yes, ma'am. I'll be there with the legal team at 10 a.m. Everything is ready. I've received the repossession order from the court and hired a moving company. I want to handle things quietly while Tom is asleep. I left the house for work at 8 a.m. as usual. Tom was sleeping slumped over the kitchen island in the living room. He looked exhausted from the fight with Megan last night. Around 9 a.m., my mother-in-law arrived. Her name was Linda Miller. She was 78. She usually came to our house 2 or 3 times a week, mostly to check on Tom. My mother-in-law didn't like me. It had been that way since we got married. She always said I was a sickly daughter-in-law who couldn't even keep the house proper for her husband. Hello, Linda, I used to say, but today I wasn't there. My mother-in-law went into the living room. Tom, wake up, she said, shaking Tom. Tom woke up in a daze. Mom, why are you here so early? What's wrong? It's past 9. What's wrong with you these days? Why do you look so haggard? Linda looked closely at Tom's face, worry appearing. It's nothing, Mom, Tom replied, his voice weak. Then, he heard the sound of trucks outside. He looked out the window. 2 large moving trucks were parked in the driveway. Men in uniforms stepped out. The doorbell rang. Tom went to open it. Hello, a polite voice spoke. Yes? What is it? I'm here to handle the asset recovery. Please check the court order. Tom was receiving the papers when his mother stepped in. What are you talking about? What does asset recovery mean? Linda asked loudly. We are here to recover this house and related assets. They belong to CEO Hannah Miller's corporation. The legal team member explained calmly. Why are you taking our house? My mother-in-law fixed it up. This is the house we've lived in for 15 years. I'm sorry, but according to the property deed, this house is registered under Miller Enterprises. It is provided as corporate housing. Kevin appeared at that moment. I had asked him to go there to monitor the situation. Hello, my name is Kevin Jacobs, CFO of Miller Enterprises. Kevin greeted her politely. What is Miller Enterprises? It was the first time she had heard of the company, and my mother-in-law was quite surprised. It is a company run by CEO Hannah Miller. This house is company housing provided to employees. What are you talking about? Linda looked in disbelief, as if she couldn't believe Hannah ran a company. Tom was no different. He still didn't fully grasp the situation. Wait, what is going on? Tom asked Kevin. Tom, the corporate housing contract has been terminated. Therefore, as of today, we are here to recover the house and related assets. What do you mean related assets? All appliances, furniture, and even the company car. At that moment, Tom's face turned pale. The movers came in and started moving things out. They took the refrigerator, washing machine, TV, and sofa one by one. No, why are you taking our things? Linda screamed, trying to stop a mover. Ma'am, these items are all company property. They were registered under the company name when purchased, Kevin explained calmly. That's ridiculous. When did Hannah start a company? Linda continued to yell. Calm down, Mom. Tom tried to stop her, but it was useless. Then Megan appeared. I don't know where she slept after leaving last night, but she must have come early to check the situation. Honey, what is this? Megan asked Tom. But her voice was completely different from yesterday. It was much colder. Megan, do you really have nothing? No house? No car? Megan asked bluntly. Tom couldn't answer. It was the truth. Megan suddenly started pulling something off her finger. It was a diamond ring. Tom had given it to her not long ago. I'm returning this. Megan shoved the ring into Tom's hand. Megan, what are you doing? Honey, I'm sorry. I can't be responsible for this situation, Megan said coldly. From the beginning, when I met you, I thought you were stable, but now I see you're not. Linda exploded in anger, hearing Megan speak. What is this woman saying? Didn't you seduce our Tom? Ma'am, I hope you don't speak like that. I was deceived too, Megan replied confidently. So you approached our son for money from the start. Linda shouted louder. So what? My brother, Tom was planning to divorce for a younger woman, wasn't he? We met because we needed each other. Megan's words were too true for Tom to refute. Meanwhile, the movers continued to empty the house. The living room became more and more bare. It was fascinating to see how the house we lived in for 15 years became empty so quickly. Please return the car keys as well, the legal team member told Tom. The car too? Yes, it's a company vehicle. Tom took the key fob from his pocket and handed it over. His hand was trembling. Megan saw this, her face full of disappointment. Tom, I'm leaving. Megan turned to go, but Linda stopped her. Hey, isn't this your fault? Take responsibility. Ma'am, what did I do wrong? He lied. What did I do? Megan said, shaking off Linda's hand. And you, ma'am, find out what your son actually owns. I'm done, Megan said, and actually left, never looking back. Tom stood there stunned, watching Megan leave. Linda was still furious. Hannah, that woman who treated her husband like this. She was venting her anger on me, even though I wasn't there. But I was watching the whole thing remotely through Kevin's update. I didn't say a word. Hannah, is this all my fault? Tom asked the air. My voice would have trembled. No, I just took back what was mine. I would have replied calmly. What did you have? How long have you been in business? Since 10 years ago. I didn't tell you because you didn't care. Linda heard the conversation between Kevin and Tom and got even angrier. What kind of woman runs a business without letting her husband know? It wasn't that she did it secretly. It's just that he didn't care, Kevin said softly. It wasn't until lunch that the clearing was finished. The house was completely empty. No furniture, no appliances, absolutely nothing. Tom and Linda stood in the empty living room. They looked like they had nowhere to go. Tom, where will we live now? Linda asked in a desperate voice. I don't think that's something you should ask us, Kevin replied calmly. We lived here for 15 years. Yes, you lived in the house the CEO provided. Kevin walked up and said, Boss, everything has been taken care of. They are leaving now. I nodded at Kevin's text. Tom had been my husband for 15 years, but now he felt like a stranger. Tom, this is necessary for a fresh start. Please understand. I said this in my mind one last time. I didn't look back. A week later, I received a call from a local New York TV station. They wanted to interview me for a segment on small business success stories. At first, I planned to refuse. I always preferred to stay quiet. But then I realized there was no reason to hide anymore. I felt it was time to speak up. The broadcast studio was cozier than I expected. The lighting was warm, and 2 cameras were pointed at me. The host was a woman in her 50s named Karen Brooks. She had a gentle demeanor and exuded trust. Hello, CEO Hannah Miller. Thank you for your time today. Karen greeted me politely. Hello, I greeted her back. I felt surprisingly at ease. Could you briefly introduce Miller Enterprises? We are a small manufacturing company, primarily making automotive parts and electronic components. We have about 110 employees and an annual revenue of around $10 million. Karen looked surprised. That's quite a substantial company. When did you start? 10 years ago. Then a memory flashed in my mind. I was in a small factory in New Jersey, alone, looking at blueprints. I was pregnant, but I ended up miscarrying. My husband didn't even come to the hospital. He said there was a company dinner. At first, the company was tiny, just 5 employees. I spoke calmly. But how did you grow it to this scale? I never gave up. I kept going, no matter how hard it was. I worked late nights at the factory and came home at dawn. That went on for years. My husband didn't care what I was doing. He just said, "Go make money." That's what I said. Balancing work and family life must have been tough for you, right? Karen asked cautiously. Yes, it wasn't easy at all, especially when I was sick. I paused. I remembered being diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome at the hospital. The doctor told me to rest, but when I got home, my mother-in-law told me not to fake being sick. Actually, I have chronic fatigue syndrome. I've been treating it for years. So, you continued your business despite all that? Yes, It's my life. I couldn't stop just because I was sick. Another memory surfaced, the day my mother-in-law scolded me for being too focused on money, even though I was her daughter-in-law. She was angry I came home late from the factory, but in reality, she used that money for her living expenses. Did you have family support? When Karen asked, I answered firmly. No. In fact, it was the opposite. Opposite? My husband and mother-in-law didn't like my business. They were unhappy that a woman was working outside. The studio went silent. Karen looked at me with a serious face. So you had to manage everything alone? Yes. There were times it was really hard. Besides the pain, the lack of understanding was the hardest. I was honest. Is there a reason you didn't give up? I thought I could do something. And I wanted to prove myself, really. I wanted to show I could do it, no matter how much those around me looked down on me. I heard there was a big change in your personal life recently, Karen asked cautiously. She must have heard rumors. Yes. I got divorced. I answered calmly. I imagine that was a difficult decision. No. Actually, I feel relieved. I can finally live as myself. I remembered Kevin saying at the office how amazing the CEO was. At first, it felt awkward, but now I thought I could accept it. Finally, please give some advice to those in similar situations. Don't hide it. If there is something you can do it confidently. Don't give up just because of what others think. I spoke with all my heart. And don't be ashamed of being sick. Doing your best, even in pain, is courage. After the interview, Karen said, "You are truly amazing. I hope many people watch this interview today." On my way home, I told myself, now things will truly change. I won't hide anymore. I will proudly show my true self and my abilities. The interview aired a week later and quickly went viral locally and on social media. People started sympathizing with my story and cheering for me. Meanwhile, Tom and his mother fell into a completely different situation. Neighbors began to gossip, saying, "How dare he cheat and leave such an amazing wife?" A month after the interview aired, I finally got a call from the court. The first hearing date for the divorce mediation was set. It was at the family court in Westchester, near where I lived. I woke up early that morning and put on a suit, black blazer, white shirt, dress shoes. Looking in the mirror, I saw a different person. I looked stronger and more confident. The courthouse was more solemn than I expected. The gray concrete building had grand steps, and people moved quietly. I went through security, and my heart pounded as I entered. Attorney Sarah Jenkins was the first to arrive. She was about 45, introduced by Kevin. She specialized in family law. "Hannah, are you ready?" Attorney Jenkins asked calmly. Yes. I gripped my briefcase. Inside was all the evidence I had gathered. "Do you know what their argument will be?" "I'm not sure. But he will surely try to make excuses." I really thought so. Tom would never admit his fault. I entered the courtroom. It wasn't as spacious as I imagined, but the high ceilings made it feel imposing. There were 2 tables before the judge and a gallery behind. I sat at the left table, Attorney Jenkins beside me. The right table was still empty. About 10 minutes later, Tom walked in. He was alone, without a lawyer. His face looked haggard. He seemed to have lost a lot of weight in the last month. Tom looked at me and hesitated. Then he bowed his head and sat down. "Has the defendant not hired a lawyer?" the clerk asked Tom. "No, I'm representing myself," Tom replied quietly. A moment later, the judge entered. He was a man in his late 50s, stern but authoritative. "We are hearing case 2024, the divorce of Hannah Miller and Tom Miller." The judge's voice echoed. "First, plaintiff, please state the grounds for divorce." Attorney Jenkins stood up. "Your Honor, the plaintiff, Hannah Miller, files for divorce on the grounds of the defendant, Tom Miller's, continuous infidelity, verbal abuse, and financial exploitation." Then Attorney Jenkins submitted the evidence. First, the defendant had an illicit affair with a woman named Megan. To prove this, we submit call logs and witness testimonies. Tom bowed his head. It was undeniable. Second, while the plaintiff was treating her chronic fatigue syndrome, the defendant constantly made abusive remarks, saying a sick woman is only good for money. Jenkins submitted a recording. I had secretly recorded it. Third, the defendant received financial support from the plaintiff for 15 years, but ignored and belittled her business. The judge looked at Tom. What do you say to this? Tom replied with a trembling voice. Your Honor, I was wrong. The courtroom fell silent. It is true I cheated, and it is true I spoke harshly to my wife. There was no room for excuses. Tom continued, But Your Honor, I really didn't know the scale of my wife's business. I didn't know she ran such a big company. The judge asked me, Is there a reason the plaintiff didn't tell the defendant about the business during the marriage? I stood up slowly and answered, Your Honor, I tried to talk about my work many times in the beginning, but the defendant showed no interest, saying, What's so special about a woman's business? I said calmly. And since my in-laws were also unhappy with my working, I didn't bother explaining further. The judge nodded. So, what does the plaintiff demand from the defendant? Attorney Jenkins answered. The plaintiff wants only the divorce. She asks for no division of assets or alimony. The judge looked surprised. No asset division? Yes, Your Honor. The plaintiff states she wishes to keep only the assets she built herself and wants nothing from the defendant. The judge asked me directly, Do you truly mean that? I stood up and answered clearly. Yes, Your Honor. I ask for nothing from him. My voice rang through the room. I only hope he never interferes in my life again. Tom looked at me, tears filled his eyes. But I didn't waver. The judge reviewed the documents one by one. The silence lasted a long time. I asked the defendant, Do you agree to the divorce? Yes, Your Honor, I agree. Tom answered weakly. Do you also waive rights to claim the plaintiff's assets? Yes, I waive them. I contributed nothing, so I cannot claim ownership. Tom's voice trailed off. The judge announced the final verdict. This court grants the divorce of plaintiff Hannah Miller and defendant Tom Miller. Finally, it was over. The 5-year marriage was done. The defendant's infidelity, verbal abuse, and financial irresponsibility are grounds for dissolution, the judge continued. Furthermore, the plaintiff's asset recovery is recognized as a legitimate exercise of rights. As we left the courtroom, Tom approached me. Hannah, I'm so sorry, Tom said, voice shaking. Apologizing now changes nothing, I replied coldly. Just live your own life. I think that's better for both of us. Tom tried to say more, but I turned and left. Attorney Jenkins followed me out. Great work, Hannah. This is truly a new start. Yes, Attorney Jenkins, thank you. I looked up at the sky walking down the courthouse steps. It was slightly cloudy, but the sun was warm. I felt truly free, but deep down, I knew this wasn't the end. I knew Tom and Linda weren't the type to give up easily. They would surely find another way. But it didn't matter. I was confident now. About a month after the divorce decree, I was working as usual at my Midtown office. It was a normal day reviewing orders, staff meetings. Then around 3 p.m., the receptionist called. Ma'am, a Mr. Tom Miller and an older woman are in the lobby. They want to see you. It was Tom and Linda. They hadn't contacted me for a month, and now they showed up. Okay. Tell them to wait. I hung up and thought. I had anticipated this. I told Kevin they would come eventually. I called Kevin. Kevin, my ex-husband and mother-in-law are in the lobby. Yes? What's happening? Kevin asked, surprised. They're probably here to beg. Just in case, please contact security. Yes, ma'am. I composed myself and went down to the lobby. I took a deep breath in the elevator. Time to clean up the last mess. When I arrived, Tom and Linda were sitting on a bench. Both looked significantly aged in the last month. Especially Linda, her hair was thinner, her face gaunt. Tom stood up as soon as he saw me. Then, suddenly, he knelt in the middle of the lobby. Hannah, please forgive me, Tom shouted. Everyone in the lobby stared. Linda followed suit and knelt. Hannah, I was wrong. Please forgive me, Linda cried. I watched silently. The people who ignored and abused me were kneeling before me. 15 years ago, this would have broken my heart. But now, I was calm. Stand up, I said calmly. You're making people uncomfortable. But they kept kneeling. Hannah, I'm sorry, I was stupid. I didn't know you were such an amazing person, Tom pleaded. Even Megan tricked me. She came to me for money. I finally realized that. Linda chimed in. Hannah, I'm sorry. I treated you so poorly. I finally realized. I looked at them and spoke slowly. Why are you apologizing now? Hannah, we were so wrong, Tom replied. I can't live without you. Please take me back. How is your mother? I looked at Linda. Hannah, I was wrong too. I only realized when I saw how much money you make. Hearing Linda say that, I couldn't help but scoff. In the end, it was all about money. I said quietly, if I didn't have money, you wouldn't be here now, right? They went silent. Linda wasn't grieving the loss of me, but the loss of the money. I've made myself clear, Tom. No, Hannah. Tom tried to make excuses. So what? If I were just an ordinary housewife, would my mother-in-law be kneeling here begging? Tom bowed his head silently. When I was sick, she said I was just a money drain. Why is it different now? Linda cried. Hannah, I'm so sorry. I won't say that again. It's too late, Linda, I said firmly. I remember how you treated me for 15 years. Just then, Kevin arrived with the security team. I had asked him to do this beforehand. Boss, are you okay? Kevin asked anxiously. Yes, I'm fine. Please escort them out. I looked at Tom and Linda one last time. Tom, Linda, I want to live a different life. Both looked desperate. Please don't come find me again. Hannah, please, Tom begged one last time. No, we were wrong. Give us one more chance. Linda grabbed at me, but I wouldn't be shaken. Kevin, please. Kevin and security gently guided them out. They didn't drag them. They just politely escorted them. Please, this way. The head of security spoke politely. Tom and Linda looked at me, then left. Both were crying. But I turned and walked to the elevator. I cried for a moment in the elevator. Ending 15 years wasn't easy. But I couldn't go back. If they truly loved me, they wouldn't have treated me that way. I went back to the office and looked out the window. The Hudson River flowed gently. The sun was setting, turning the sky crimson. Kevin walked in. They have left. Thank you. Hannah, are you okay? Yes, I'm fine. Actually, I feel relieved. It was true. It felt like it was finally over. But what if he comes back? Kevin asked worriedly. He won't. He's probably given up. I was sure. I saw their faces. They were completely broken. That night, I went home and slept better than I had in years. I felt unbound by the past. A few days later, I heard news. Tom and Linda left Westchester. I don't know where they went, but I didn't see them around anymore. Rumor had it Megan had found another man long ago. Everything went as I predicted. Now I was truly alone. But I wasn't lonely. Conversely, I felt free. I didn't have to worry about what others thought and could live how I wanted. Work became more fun. No need to hide. I could expand the business confidently. I planned to build a new factory and hire more staff. Sometimes, walking alone by the river, I thought, everything has finally fallen into place. I experienced firsthand that truth comes out, and self-love wins. And above all, the biggest lesson Potter was finding myself. 1 year has passed. It is now spring. I am writing this story in a small workshop in Newark. Cherry blossoms are blooming outside, and warm sunlight streams in. This workshop is my new venture. I named it The Haven. I created a space where local women can work. Mainly women who struggle to work traditional jobs. They come here for simple packaging and assembly work. They have flexible hours and can bring their kids. I started with 5. Now we have about 20. Ages range from early 20s to 50s. Everyone has a story. Boss. Lots of orders today. Mary, one of the workers, said. She's in her early 40s. Her husband's business failed, so she raises 2 kids alone. Really? I smiled. If you have any trouble, let me know. Seeing the staff reminded me of my past, enduring hardship alone. Kevin manages the HQ in Manhattan well. Sales are up 30% from last year. We have new clients, and employee benefits improved. I spend 3 days in Manhattan, the rest at the Haven. Both places are precious to me. This afternoon, I went to the hospital for the first time in a while. Chronic fatigue syndrome checkup. The doctor said, "You're much better. Your stress levels seem significantly lower." It was true. I felt lighter, physically and mentally. Leaving the hospital, I overheard some news. Tom and Linda are living in a boarding house on the outskirts of the city. Tom works part-time at a convenience store, and Linda washes dishes at a diner. At first, I felt a pang of sadness. They were family once, and now they lived such hard lives. But I accepted it quickly. It was the path they chose. I walk my path, they walk theirs. I heard Megan married someone else last year. A real estate agent. She must have found someone stable. That evening, I had a quick dinner with colleagues from the Haven. We had barbecue at a nearby spot. "Thank you so much, boss," Sarah, a widow living alone, said. "Thanks to you, I could start a new life." "I'm grateful to have you all too," I said sincerely. Walking home, I strolled along the river park. Stars twinkled. The wind was warm. I never imagined I could walk with such peace a year ago. Back then, everything was complicated and hard. I went home and sat in the living room. Though I lived alone, I wasn't lonely. I was confident I was living the life I wanted. Reading news on my phone, I saw an article about young women seeking financial independence, unwilling to give up careers after marriage. I thought, that's a relief. Fewer people would suffer like I did. And I realized my suffering wasn't in vain. Maybe it could help someone. Tonight, for the first time in a while, I wrote in my journal, "Looking back at last year, so much has changed. The biggest change is me. I don't care what others think anymore. I speak my mind and live by my beliefs. And above all, I am happy. True happiness where I don't have to fake a smile or hide pain. I plan to go to the Haven tomorrow. A new employee is starting, and we have a big order. The Manhattan HQ is preparing a new project. I plan to start exporting next year. It feels like a dream. These are things I couldn't imagine last year." Some of you reading this might be in a similar situation. To you, I say, you are stronger than you think, and you have a choice. Don't hide it. Don't hide your abilities, dreams, or value. It doesn't matter if others don't recognize them. Believing in yourself is what matters. I am now truly free, and I will continue to walk my path confidently, proudly, and happily. Hannah Miller's story has given us important lessons. Don't hide your worth. Don't wait for others' approval. True happiness comes when you love yourself and live confidently. Don't think it's too late. A new beginning is always possible. If anyone is going through a hard time, remember, you are stronger than you think. If this story brought you even a little comfort, please like and share. It would be an honor to hear your story in the comments. I will return next time with another story. This is your narrator, Karen. Thank you.